Okay, my question, this is for horror authors, directors, or just anyone who's interested in horror, is it's actually very specific. Did you ever have a nightmare that has stuck with you for a long time, and you could definitely use it in some type of horror? Now, I actually like to go first. I mean, if that's what we're going to be talking about.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
And this was probably back, I think I was in junior high. I never liked funeral homes, okay? I don't like it. I don't like the cloying niceness behind the fact that it's death. And I had a nightmare once that I fell down some basement steps in a funeral home, and on either side there was the parlors where there was a body in each one, and then the door of the basement closed, and then the lights came on, and that stuck with me. I woke up sweating. I woke up just not wanting to go back to sleep. And I thought if I ever did horror writing, which I don't, and these guys remind me on a constant basis, that would be something I would love to put in there because, as I said, funeral homes are just intentionally creepy to me. So, Kevin, did you ever have one?
So, I've got a couple answers for you. As far as actual dreams or nightmares, I do have a nightmare when I was a kid. And it's not going to make... I'm going to try to explain it because those of you guys that remember your dreams, you know how there's dream logic where everything makes sense in the dream. Then you try to explain it in real life and it doesn't make any sense anymore. I used to have this dream of being on a country road in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere. And I came across in the ditch, this pile of human bones. And I reached out and touched the bones, and they instantly jumped up into a full skeleton and started chasing me along the road.
Ooh.
And then I ended up in this building where for some reason there was a Christmas tree in the middle of the building, but no one was there. And it was dead silent. And it was nothing but this absolute clinging dread. Now, I don't know how I could ever turn that into a story. But that was, that dream, I would have it multiple times. And I don't know what it was about that skeleton. I will say, this is around the same age that I was reading scary stories to tell by the campfire.
Oh.
A lot. So I don't know if that was inspired by that. But I just remember waking up from this dream in a cold sweat. Now,
I got to drive home over a very big country hill
I
road.
always do this to him.
If I see anything on the side of the road, I'm not stopping.
Yeah.
Nah.
I actually have a couple others to share, but so I'm not dominating the conversation. Let's kick over to Chuck. What about you first?
Well, I was actually thinking, you mentioned the funeral home. I actually went to a conference recently, and I was one of the authors. I was invited to speak there and help sell books, not just my books, but other authors' books. And the person organizing it for all of us actually got us a room. They started renting out rooms upstairs at a funeral home. It was an actual funeral home where, like, downstairs is, like, there's the bodies, but upstairs used to also be part of the funeral home, but now we're offering you can stay in these rooms. You can actually see, like, where the coffins would sit. And I remember sitting there, and the locks didn't work. I remember sitting in bed and watching my door just open in the middle of the night. There was no one there. It was literally
Actually,
no one
now
there.
I think about it, the whole funeral home thing, it goes back to when homes had parlors.
Yeah, and it had a parlor.
Right. Yes, and it turns out parlors were like the very nice room that the kids weren't allowed in. And it was either for company or for funerals. And my mom...
we're near Parlor City.
Yeah.
Binghamton's Parlor City.
My mother is originally from Elmira, and at my grandmother's house there was the parlor room, which was always kind of a sad, depressing place. And it turns out when her father died, they held the wake there in the parlor, and they left the body there. And that's just something you don't want to go downstairs, get a snack in the middle of the night, and come into. So that could be a possibility. Maybe it's just the whole fear of death as well.
Yep.
So I think at a certain age you have to wonder, you do ask yourself, maybe it's a religious concept, why are we here if we're just to die?
So,
maybe I'm going to give you the Catholic version, you crazy Baptist.
Not Baptist.
Maybe it's just
a Catholic in between two Baptists.
Give us a traveling shoe salesman, we can go to a bar.
So, But you asked about nightmares for me. Nowadays, I don't remember a whole lot of my dreams, but there's been a recurring theme in a lot of my dreams, and they can either go into just dream or into nightmare territory, depending on how it goes. My dreams are awesome when I can remember them. They're basically giant action movies. I mean, so many of my dreams go back to, honestly, the trailer I grew up in. Being attacked by dinosaurs. There's often people riding around in jetpacks and guns fighting off these guys in jetpacks and the dinosaurs and things like that. I mean, my dreams are basically Jurassic Park a lot of times, and I write monster stories.
So
and
you're worried
monster
about that
horror.
being a formative movie for you.
Oh, yeah. So a lot of my dreams involve trying to survive against being attacked by dinosaurs, monsters, aliens, spies, whatever. So that's most of my dreams. I don't dream a lot with the people that I know. Usually it's just
Right.
strangers. It's me and people I make up as a cast of characters. And depending on how it goes, it could either be an action movie or a horror where I end up dead in the end. So
I'm wondering if our wives are going to watch this and be like, well, we're going to interpret your dreams. No, just please don't, honey.
I think our wives would probably have much better things to do.
yes.
Anyway,
Yes.
I've got a couple things to add on to this. There are 2 dreams that I have successfully turned into stories, but they weren't really nightmares. One, so I don't really have any context for this dream, and I have to clarify. Again, I don't know if our wives are going to ever take time to watch these videos.
And why not, Trish?
I had a dream once. I will say this. Whenever I have dreams that involve me and, say, someone who's not my wife, my brain always does a throwback and makes it so it's when I was single before I met her. I don't know why that is.
Oh, you're talking about a relationship with another woman.
Yeah,
I
or
thought you
so-
meant like with
I
just
remember
anybody.
having this haunting dream of riding on a bus with a girl. And I was young. It was pre-Abby. And I didn't want the bus...
Kevin's life free, Abby.
Right. I didn't want the bus ride to end because there was just this girl and I were sitting on the bus and we were holding hands and there was just this overwhelming sense of regret and loss because when the bus ride was going to end, whatever was existing between this girl and I was over.
So this is basically a Kevin Lucia short story.
Well, no, there wasn't enough there to make it a story. I was able to sell it as flash fiction to one of Lamplight Magazine and Apocryphal Publications, the brainchild of Jacob Haddon, which is the most wonderful man on the face of the earth. He will be a guest on the show eventually. I was able to sell it as flash fiction because I don't write flash fiction very often. For those of you who are not aware, flash fiction is anywhere from 500 words to only 1,000 words. So it's not really, there's no real plot there. It's like a snapshot of an emotion. So I was able to convert that into a snapshot of an emotion, this moment in time where you're on the bus, this bus with this girl, and I knew it was going to end. The only other time I've been able to capture a work of, a dream into a work of fiction is my newest book, which will be coming out soon from Cemetery Dance Publications, called Mystery Road. I remember having a dream about this house out in the middle of the woods where I had some emotional, nostalgic connection to this house, and I didn't know why. After waking up, I couldn't really pinpoint it as a relative's house, but I used that as the core for that novella. The last thing I'm going to end with is not an actual nightmare, but let's take
Was I in it?
No, it's a real-life experience. Many, many years ago, for those who don't know, my son is a high-functioning autistic. And we're not going to, this could be an entire video clip on its own, so I won't go into it. But many, many years ago, we were at a water safari in Old Forge up in the Adirondacks. And, my son had never gone on water tubes before with his autism, but this was the first summer he was actually able to go on rides. So I overreached a little bit, and we went on a ride. I asked him if he wanted to go on this ride, and he said yes. And it was one of those water tubes where as soon as you went into the water tube, everything went pitch black.
Oh, you mean into the tunnel?
And he started screaming, and I was deathly afraid I was going to lose him. Now, in the back of your mind, you know at the end of the water tube, the water is not above your head. You know there's lifeguards there. But imagine going down that water tube. Your son is, your autistic son, who's not fully aware of his surroundings as a kid that normal age would, screaming at the top of his lungs because you're deathly afraid you're going to lose him. I used that for one of my novellas, which is called And I Watered It in Tears. I originally sold that novella to Lamplight Magazine. It eventually appeared in my novella collection, Through a Mirror Darkly. It is literally the hardest thing I've ever had to write.
Yeah.
Because I had to get up and walk away several times while I was writing it. Because in my story, I took the worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in my
The
son...
fear of losing a child.
Yeah, my son and I made it through the water thing fine. We got to the end. He totally forgot about it. 20 minutes later, the whole incident was forgotten. But I imagined the worst case scenario.
Oh.
And I had to get up and walk away from this story several times. And it has since become one of my most popular stories because of that raw
This is some
emotional
deep
core.
stuff right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, a lot of what I come up with, things that are intimidating for me, come out of when I'm, alert, not necessarily in a dream. So I wrote Whispers from the Depths. I don't have a phobia of water, but I always have this nervousness with the lakes. Like, that feeling where you just can't see what's below the surface, and something brushes against you, you have no idea what it is.
Right.
It's whether it's the ocean, the lake, or whatnot. There's that nervousness of you're there, you're exposed, you can't really get away fast enough, and whatever's there is there. There's nothing you can do about it. So a lot of that nervous energy went into Whispers from the Depths. So again, I wouldn't say I have a phobia of water, but I've recognized how intimidating to know that there's a surface and I have no idea what's below the
Right.
surface. And from that, it was kind of this idea of what is the worst case scenario of the water? Like, make the water sentient and let it have its way with us.
Okay.
And so a lot of the suspense and the terror of Whispers from the Depths came from that feeling of, I don't know what's below the surface.
So let's end on this. Tom, what is your greatest fear?
Being asked a question I wasn't really prepared for. Okay, my greatest fear. Now, of course, you two have kids. I don't have kids. But I do have students. And I think sometimes we actually get this concept that sometimes our students do become our kids. And sometimes I kind of feel like we realize this, that we have not helped them, that our kids be in trouble and all that. And we've seen it a few times. Kids who've had issues with drugs or alcohol, and it's just, you want to be there for them, and that is definitely a fear when you can't be there for them, and it's just very heart-wrenching. As I said, it's nowhere near the fact of having kids of your own and whether to lose them, but I think it's let's be honest, teachers are the second parent to these kids. Even if I have now former students in their 30s, and they are still my students.
They are.
And
They're
I
our
still
kids,
worry
aren't
about
they?
them.
Yeah.
So can I ask you the same thing?
My greatest fear?
If you're going to say something like peanut butter or something, I'm going to have issues.
My greatest fear would be at the end of the day, I'm going to end up failing both my kids and my wife.
Oh.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. Well, okay. So there's that fear. Here's my bigger fear. My bigger fear is the fear of being mediocre.
Oh.
This is something.
Adult fears are very more complicated than children's fears.
So maybe it's the presence of friends, peanut butter whiskey. I'm really afraid that I'm just going to be average. That my writing is only going to be average. That as a basketball player, I was only average. As a teacher, I'm only average. This YouTube channel will only be average.
We're above
We're
average.
We're
people.
working on getting there.
Yeah. So my biggest fear is that I'm just going to be like, when people talk about Kevin Lucia, which is ludicrous, all you got to do is take a walk through a used bookstore and see all these names of people you've never heard of yourself and realize that everyone has been there. But I think my biggest fear as a writer, my biggest fear as a parent and a husband is failing my family. My biggest fear as a writer is that at the end of the day, nothing I do is going to really last, and that really what I do is only going to be very temporary.
Well, Red, I'm going to throw spiders on there. Screw spiders.
Yeah, screw spiders. Jumping spiders.
Chuck, do you have any fears?
All
We're
right,
going to
well-
have to cut this video up because it's going to get too long. But Chuck,
You mentioned childhood, like adult fear, something like that. So I'll go with a childhood fear and adult fear. For a simple childhood fear, actually dogs.
Ooh.
I love dogs. I have dogs of my own. I love dogs, but
He doesn't love your dog.
I don't love your dog. I hate your dog. No, I've actually been bitten by several dogs. So I would say that the fear has let up a little bit. But I have a nervousness with dogs I don't know yet. I need to get to know them.
Okay.
It's not a full-blown phobia, but I've been bitten by, like 4 or 5 different dogs. So I've had that experience.
Maybe you're evil.
I am evil. Dogs obviously know
Dogs
what's going
can
on.
sense evil.
They can sense evil. Bit by a little, like a little
Oh,
dog.
the
Tore my
little
throat.
ones are the worst, man.
But big and little dogs. Part of it's because I used to deliver newspapers. So, but anyway, so getting to know dogs. Now, once I know the dogs, I love dogs. For adult fear, it's similar to what you mentioned, Kevin. It's not so much disappointing family, but it's more of hurting people. Like, I can make an idiot of myself and go to sleep at night, but those moments that you said something stupid and it hurt somebody, they might not even remember at this point, but 15 years later, it's still keeping me up at night. And so I hate leaving wreckage in people's lives. I hate bringing harm to people and just making a mess of things. So I would say that that's a fear for me, and that
You're one of the nicest guys in the world, man. If there's anyone here who wrecks anything, it's going to be me.
everyone has those stupid moments. So
Okay.
it's hurting people, I would say, is the fear.
Well, we're horror writers, so that's what we traffic in is fears.
Yep.
Why don't we give a toast
Wherever mine is, there it is.
to facing our fears?
Yes.